culture, right? Culture, right? You see, a lot of us don't understand how powerful culture is, right? We don't understand how powerful culture really is. You don't know that. You don't understand, right? You see, culture is so powerful that culture controls the earth, right? Culture controls politics. Culture, right? Culture controls religion. You don't know that. You don't. Nobody told you that. You don't. You know, whenever we mention culture, you only see it, we only see it from the local channel. We see it from the local perspective. We see it from the local angle. Like, the hear person go to tell you, say, our people talk, say, our people say, their dialect say, their community say. Culture, right? But deep down, culture controls the earth. Culture controls the world. Culture controls politics. Culture, right? You see, let me explain to you how culture controls politics. Let me explain to you, I'll also explain to you how culture controls the world and how culture controls the earth. Right? Our leaders, our political leaders, the president, the governors, and the rest of them, they all started from the community. They all got that orientation from the community. When they grow up from, where they all grow up from, they grow up from the community, they grow from instead from the family. Right? Culture, they say, is the way of life of a group of people that controls how they dress. Right? Culture controls how they dress. It controls how they act. It controls their social character, their social behavior. It controls the food they eat. It controls their clothing. Culture controls everything. But you don't know that. You don't. At the end of the day, you see people, their culture. People neglect culture. Meanwhile, culture controls everything. Culture controls the earth. Culture rules the world. Culture rules even your president. Culture rules the society. Culture rules your politics. Culture. That's it, culture. Because from the family, your president was produced from the family. Your governors were produced from the family. Your governors were produced from the community. They were used to the culture. Your president, they were used to the culture of the community. From the family to the community, from the community to the society, from the society to the governorship level, from the governorship level to the presidential level, to the senate and the rest of them, then to the world. Right? From the way they dress, from the food they eat, from how they act, their social behaviors and all that, they are culture. Right? So culture controls your politics. Culture controls everything. Culture controls how you think. The human mentality is controlled by culture. That's why you say, we Africans, we are always used to this saying that the African mentality, the African culture, the African ways of living, the African food, the African dressing, the African culture, the African, just everything about life is culture. Right? Like my own dialect, our people used to say that Asiso onyanadano the way. You understand? The language you're not understanding, the language you're not comprehending will get you pissed. Because you're not comprehending it, because you're not understanding it. Right? So it will get you pissed because you don't understand. So any language that you're not comprehending, any language that you're not understanding is going to get you pissed. It's going to get you paranoid. because you don't understand that very language, right? And any language you're not understanding is other people's culture, is another person's culture, is another man's culture, right? Any language on earth that you're not understanding, that you're not comprehending, is another man's culture, is another man's way of life. Culture, right? Culture. We're talking about culture. Do you know how powerful culture is? Do you know how powerful tradition is? It's culture. When we're talking about culture, we're talking about the way of life of people, That's culture. How you live, how you think, how you behave, how you dress. Right? That controls your mentality. That controls everything about you. Your belief, your social belief, your religious belief, just name it. That's culture. That's culture. Right? So culture controls about 95% of your life. Culture. Right? Culture controls about 95% of our lives. The life you live, the way you behave, the way you act, the way you dress, the way you think, the food you eat, culture controls it. We don't see these things. We don't understand how powerful culture is. We don't understand how deep culture is. We don't know that. We neglect culture. We don't know how powerful culture is. Culture controls your politics. Culture. The way of life of people. Let me say that culture. Culture shapes how people see the world and how they relate to each other. See, culture controls how everybody see the world and how they relate to others. Culture controls how I relate to you as a person. You as a person watching me right now, you as a person listening to me. Culture controls how I relate to you. Culture. How I dress, right? The language I speak, the food I eat. Culture. Right? Culture. Are we together? Remember, the same culture that was used in that was in should I say, okay, the same culture that our ancestors used at the early 17th, 16th, 14th, 15th, 18th is not the same culture as today. What happened? Change. I told you something, right? I told you something that change occurred, right? The culture that our ancestors were used to is not the same culture today. There were some adjustments. You cannot tell me that the same culture in early 18s, in early 10s, 11s, 12s is still the same culture as today. No, it's not possible. It's not. Right? There were some adjustments, right? A time came when there was adjustment came. Like, for example, our ancestors wrote this as a culture. Let's believe this is the culture that was introduced at the early 17s, at the early 16s, at the early 11s, 10s, 9s, right? This was the culture that was introduced. Then another generation came up and introduced something new, right? They picked up some things, like they picked up some information from the old culture that was written down and then passed it to the new culture, right? Then they extracted some things that is no longer needed, there's no longer significant, there's no longer useful in the new earth, in that very particular era, right? There are some things that our ancestors are doing back then that we don't see useful this time around. Are we together? It's not like those things are no longer are not important. Not like the things that they were doing or the things that they were used to, the things that our ancestors were used to are no longer useful, or they are not so significant, or they're not important. They are very, very much valuable. Are we together? But sometimes we need to check what is really happening, the way of life of a people at this point, at this era, right? the way of life of 2026 is not the way of life of 2006. There's a big difference. Are we together?